26-year-old Charles Jones was also known as Julio. In some of his songs, he made jokes about the murders of people in other groups as well as rappers.
Okay, so what he said was, we'll play the clip.
Today we're shooting for When I See You, Who I Smoke.
Who I Smoke came out of nowhere, went crazy, kind of made it more mainstream to where people who don't even know y'all, they were tapped into it. Did you make them do that?
I don't know. How I took it too far when they made a song first.
Known as Julio Foolio in Tampa.
But you will have kids at one point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you want to live long enough to have kids.
For sure.
And if you keep going down this road, you're never going to experience what it's like to have kids, which is one of the greatest experiences a human being can have. You know, yeah, you could go down and.
Who knows what else?
Hi, and Allison, a prominent rapper, Charles Jones, whose stage name is Julio. What happened here?
Charles Jones, a rapper from Tampa, Florida, who went by Julio Foolio, was involved in a terrible incident. Another young person has died as a result of the ongoing war in Florida's rap culture. As he was celebrating his birthday, Julio Foolio, who had just turned 26, was targeted. This tragic incident intensifies his bitter rivalry with Yungeen Ace, another rapper from Florida, which has a long and terrible history. Yungeen Ace is allegedly on the run after allegedly boasting in a new song that he ordered the attack on Julio Foolio. Yungeen Ace unexpectedly dropped a new trash song called Do It just hours after Julio Foolio's death. Additionally, he tweeted something that seemed to make fun of Julio Foolio's passing. The two rappers and their groups have a long-standing rivalry that is reflected in this most recent tragedy. Julio Yungeen Ace's squad is known as 8KS, and Julio's crew is named Kata. Due to their rivalry, Julio Foolio and Yungeen Ace have already lost a number of friends and family members, including their siblings. Federal officials are reportedly concentrating on Yungeen Ace in relation to this incident in light of Julio Foolio's demise. Julio Foolio, whose real name was Charles Jones, was one of 4 people hurt during the incident outside a hotel, the Tampa Police Department revealed to Excel magazine. According to a statement from the TPD, 4 people were hurt after Tampa police received a 911 call from 11606 McKinley Drive at around 4:40 a.m. 3 other victims are receiving medical attention at the hospital, while 1 victim was declared dead. In addition to trying to identify people involved, the authorities are looking into what preceded the incident. This is an ongoing inquiry, and further details will be made public as they become available. As for Julio Foolio, he was celebrating his 26th birthday and was staying at an Airbnb when the host ejected him for having too many guests, according to U.S. Attorney Louis Fusco, who spoke with News 4 Jax. He and his companions then moved to a different location. Regretfully, they spread word of this new location via social media. After being ejected from the Airbnb, Julio Foolio rented a room at the Holiday Inn Hotel, where he was ambushed, according to his lawyer. If you don't know Julio Foolio's background, he was a rising talent from Jacksonville, Florida, in the rap scene. With more than 1 million Instagram followers and more than 600,000 YouTube subscribers, he had a sizable social media following. However, Julio Foolio was also well known for his intense public conflict with Yungeen Ace, a rapper from Florida. This disagreement sprang from a long-standing rivalry between their crews, Kata and 8KS, and was more than just a personal problem. Years of simmering hatred between the two teams have resulted in a number of terrible incidents. In 2017, when Zion Brown, a 17-year-old cousin of Julio Foolio, was targeted, the hostility between the two groups began to escalate significantly. Deandra Thomas, a Yungeen Ace associate, was charged shortly afterward. Between 2018 and 2021, there were more pointless deaths as a result of the chain reaction that this incident started. Aside from the rappers themselves, members of their respective crews are also characters involved in this conflict. Both Kiki, Julio's girlfriend, and Rico, his best friend, have been severely impacted by the violence that has been going on. T-Rex, Young Ace's right-hand man, and Lisa, his sister, were also in danger as a result of the conflict. There is still tension in the Florida rap industry as rival groups continue to conflict, which is tragic and causes heartache for many of those involved. Though it's a challenging battle due to the rivalry's deep roots, the authorities are working hard to bring about peace and justice. The terrible deaths of his brother Trevin Bullard and 2 other people occurred in June 2018 when Young Ace was targeted in a drive-by shooting. Young Ace was struck 8 times, but he made it. As Julio Foolio appeared to celebrate the deaths of Young Ace's brother on social media, this incident further fueled the continuing rivalry between Julio Foolio's gang and Young Ace's crew. When Ben's Wappa, Young Ace, The Choppa, and Fast Money Goon released the song Who I Smoke in March 2021, the dispute escalated to new heights. This song included a chorus that listed the departed members of Julio Foolio's crew and sampled Vanessa Carlton's 2002 hit song A Thousand Miles. Julio Foolio answered shortly afterward with a song titled When I See You. A news article on the 2018 incident that killed Young Ace's brother opened this track. The song's controversial music video had Julio dancing in a graveyard beside pictures of Ace's friend and brother who had passed away. Young Ace and Julio Foolio have both mentioned their feud in passing in interviews over the years. However, they have largely refrained from discussing the dispute in depth. Julio Foolio spoke with Vlad TV in July 2021 on Young Ace's dissing of his late younger brother on Who I Smoke. He asserted that before switching sides, a few of the individuals who worked with Young Ace on that song were his supporters. In response to Vlad's question on whether Julio Foolio thought the beef should be resolved before more people died, Julio Foolio replied that they would most likely get down and discuss it sooner rather than later. Additionally, he disclosed that he had previously had conversations with Young Ace and asserted that neither of them desired the violence to persist. Young Ace, however, denied ever having seen Julio Foolio face-to-face and asserted that Julio Foolio and his group were making fun of him for likes and views when he made an appearance on Vlad TV shortly after. Eventually, Young Ace acknowledged that he had previously messaged Julio Foolio. However, Young Ace didn't seem receptive to the proposal when Vlad implied that Julio Foolio was open to settling the dispute and squashing the beef. Supporters thought that when Julio Foolio stated that the beef would cease sooner or later, Vlad didn't understand what he meant. Julio Foolio didn't seem to be suggesting that Young Ace and him sit down and hash things out. Rather, he intended for it to end when he and his group discovered Young Ace falling. It appears that Young Ace received the message, as there is now much conjecture that Young Ace chose to capture Julio Foolio first. And now, regrettably, here we are covering another catastrophe. The possibility that this cycle of violence would go on even after Julio Foolio passes away adds to the tragedy of his death. The passing of Julio Foolio, according to Jacksonville crime researcher Tom Hackney, will only escalate the current issue. According to Hackney, this will cause his squad to feel compelled to take revenge on a rival group, and it will continue like way. In June 2018, a drive-by shooting targeted Young Ace, resulting in the untimely deaths of Trevin Bullard, his brother, and 2 other people. Even after taking 8 hits, Young Ace managed to survive. The existing rivalry between Julio Foolio's gang and Young Ace's team was further fueled by this incident. In the role of Julio on social media, Julio appeared to be celebrating the deaths of Young Ace's brother. When Young Ace, Ben Zwappa, The Choppa, and Fast Money Goon released the song Who I Smoke in March 2021, the dispute escalated to new heights. The chorus of this song, which used a sample of Vanessa Carlton's 2002 hit song, 1,000 Miles, listed the crew members of Julio Foolio who had passed away. Julio Foolio answered shortly afterward with a song titled When I See You. A news article about the 2018 incident that killed Young Ace's brother opened this track. The song's provocative music video featured Julio Foolio dancing at a graveyard beside pictures of Ace's friend and brother who had passed away. Young Ace and Julio Foolio have both mentioned their rivalry in passing in interviews over the years, but they have largely refrained from going into specifics about the dispute. During an interview with Vlad TV in July 2021, Julio Foolio stated how Young Ace had dissed his late little brother on Who I Smoke. He asserted that before switching sides, a few of the individuals who worked with Young Ace on that song were his supporters. Vlad questioned Julio Foolio on whether he believed the beef should be resolved before more people died. They would eventually get down and have a conversation about it, according to Julio Foolio. Additionally, he disclosed that he had previously had conversations with Young Ace and asserted that neither of them desired the violence to persist. Young Ace, however, denied ever having seen Julio Foolio face-to-face and asserted that Julio Foolio and his group were making fun of him for likes and views when he made an appearance on Vlad TV shortly after. Eventually, Young Ace acknowledged that he had previously messaged Julio Foolio. However, Young Ace didn't seem receptive to the proposal when Vlad implied that Julio Foolio was open to settling the dispute and squashing the beef. Supporters thought that when Julio Foolio stated that the beef would cease sooner or later, Vlad didn't understand what he meant. It seems that Julio Foolio was referring to the fact that it would end when he and his group discovered Young Ace making a mistake, rather than sitting down and trying to work things out with Young Ace. It appears that Young Ace received the message, as there is now much conjecture that Young Ace chose to capture Julio Foolio first. And now, regrettably, here we are, covering another catastrophe. The possibility that Julio Foolio's death won't stop this cycle of violence is what makes his loss all the more heartbreaking. The passing of Julio Foolio, according to Jacksonville crime researcher Tom Hackney, will only escalate the current issue. According to Hackney, this will lead to his team feeling compelled to take revenge on a competing group, and the cycle will continue. What are your thoughts on this sad circumstance then? Is there any possibility that this beef will lessen? Or will the violence on Florida's streets only escalate as a result of Julio Foolio's death? I want to know what you think. Please leave a remark below.